Hello and welcome to Tech Raven. I'm Nigel and today I'm going to be doing a little comparison between IK Multimedia's incredible Modo Bass 2, which is a VST software plugin that I'm using today on Logic, on the Mac, and I'm going to be comparing that to my trusty Tobias bass guitar. Now, what I've done, I've actually picked 6 songs that I'm going to actually play for comparison purposes. They're not famous cliche bass lines such as Queen's Another One Bites the Dust or anything like that. A lot of them you probably won't even recognize, but you know, I figured I'd give you a bit of a challenge to see if you can figure out what they are. Some of them are a little bit more obscure, but these are some of my favorite bands and favorite songs of all time. They're not the most technically demanding bass lines, all very simple stuff, but it's just for comparison purposes so you can hear how a real bass guitar sounds compared to the Modo Bass 2 VST software plugin. Now, I'm going to be playing in the bass lines with the software using my Arturia MIDI keyboard controller, as opposed to just dropping MIDI notes onto the piano roll, because if you just drop MIDI notes in and do it that way, the velocity of every note is exactly the same, and of course they're all lined up on the grid exactly the same, so it sounds a little bit robotic. So if I play them in using this, I'm going to be getting the human feel, of course, and of course the variation in velocity because this is touch sensitive. So playing the bass lines and using the MIDI keyboard controller is going to be more realistic, and it's going to give you a better idea as to how they compare to this. So let me jump onto the computer now so I can basically bring up what I've already recorded to let you hear the difference between the actual bass guitar and this software. Okay, so here in Logic you can see that I've got songs all laid out on the timeline in colour order. Now I apologise for these white squares in the middle, on the left and along the bottom here, this strip, because these are just covering up bits of writing. Otherwise you would know which is me playing my Tobias Toby Pro bass guitar and which is the Modo Bass VST, with me playing those in via my MIDI keyboard controller. But I will get rid of these squares in a minute to reveal which is which. Now, off the bat, I will just say that Modo Bass does not have an example of a Tobias Toby Pro bass guitar, probably because it's not that well known and it's not that high end. Now, if I had something like a modern American Fender jazz bass, I could have picked the modern jazz bass in Modo Bass and got the two to sound 100% identical. But it is what it is, but I'm just letting you know that there's definitely going to be tonal differences and imbalances because there is not an example of a Tobias bass in Modo Bass. So what I did was, using the active circuitry on my Tobias Toby Pro bass, I did adjust the bass and treble and pickup balance to get the bass to sound as close as possible to the songs that I am covering here, or at least to get it in the ballpark. And then in Modo Bass, I picked a bass guitar that again was also in the ballpark for comparison purposes. So it could be in some instances you prefer the sound of my Tobias Toby Pro bass, and in others you may prefer the Modo bass that I picked. So enough talking, let me give you the first example. So what I'll do when I go through these songs, I will play you just the first 4 bars, one with me playing the bass and one with the Modo bass, but not in that order. And then I will play all 8 bars to reveal which was which. So here's the first example, first 4 bars. And the second example. Okay, and the big reveal. Okay, and the next one. Okay, let's move on to the next song. And the next example. Okay, and the big reveal. Okay, and the next example. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, next example of that song. Okay, and the big reveal. Okay, and the next example. Okay, and moving on to the next song. Next example. Okay, and the big reveal. Okay, next example, same song. Okay, moving on to the next song. And the next example. Okay, and the big reveal. Okay, and the next example of that. Okay, this is the final example. And the next one. Okay, and the big reveal. Okay, and the final example. Okay, so there it is. Just to wrap up the video, what I will say is that MODOBass 2, it comes in various packages. You can get it with just a few bass guitars, but if you buy it with all 22 bass guitars, in the UK it's £199. Now, that to me is just ridiculously cheap. Now, this actual software package, it's not based on samples, it's actually modeled, so it's computer code that's generating these sounds. There's no samples at all. But to me, it sounds indistinguishable from the real thing. It just sounds so good, it's unbelievable. And if you scroll through all the bass guitars that you've got on here, £199 is nothing, given that you've got 22 bass guitars. And if you work out how much it would cost to buy these 22 guitars, it would probably be about £65,000 or something like that, because the cheapest bass on here is going to be something like an American Fender Jazz, and you know that's going to be like £1,800–1,900 alone. And then you've got these various other bass guitars. Some of them cost like, you know, £3,000–5,000. You've got Rickenbackers. You've got really good quality bass guitars here. I think there's like a Spectre. You know, these are expensive instruments. There's about £65,000 worth of basses that you get in this software package for just £199. And like I said, the modeling of it is just absolutely incredible. Now, for me, that's better than samples, because of course, when you're tuning and doing things with the sounds, anybody that knows anything about samples knows that if you start to pull the tuning too far away from the original sample, it just starts to sound a bit weird. With this, because it's modeled, you can do whatever you want, and it's just going to still sound 100% like a bass guitar. It is absolutely superb. Now, for me, I actually prefer using the MODOBass 2 software package and playing in the bass lines with the MIDI keyboard controller, as opposed to DIing the bass guitar into my audio interface and actually playing them in. Why? Because the bass guitar, admittedly, it's not my main instrument. I can play the bass guitar fine. I could probably get a job being the bass player in AC/DC. As for getting a job in Joy Division, piece of cake. I wouldn't even have to try for those parts. I mean, let's face it, they were just the simplest bass parts on the planet. But piano is my main instrument, not blowing my own trumpet. I did the 8 grades with piano. I've got a degree in classical pianoforte, so I feel more comfortable on a keyboard than I do on a bass. So for me, because this thing sounds just so good, my bass guitar, lovely as it is with this through neck and great active pickups, it's going on eBay, because I don't actually play live gigs anymore, so there's not going to be any point in me actually owning a bass guitar. When I was 20, I was in a band, I was playing the bass in the band then, but if you're not doing gigs, and I'm not going to be doing gigs anymore with a bass, so this is going on eBay, and all my studio work is going to be done with a MIDI keyboard controller and MODOBass 2. For me, that's how good it is. Now, obviously, a lot of bass players are going to be like, what, you're getting rid of your bass? It's like, well, yeah, because it's easier and better for me, and I can get better results and better sounds. Frankly, it's just such a variation of sounds from all these bass guitars as opposed to just one. And of course, with active circuitry, you know, you can do a little bit going from back to front pickup and adjusting the bass and treble, but you know, the variation in sounds is quite minimal. But on this, you've got all these bass guitars and so much variation. There's so much you can do with this software package. It is absolutely unbelievable. So again, this is going on eBay. It's not going to be used again. And all my future studio work is all going to be done with this software package and this MIDI keyboard controller. So there it is. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Nigel. Give it a thumbs up. And if you like the content, do subscribe, because I'm uploading stuff on video production, audio production, and photography with a regular basis. So until the next one, bye for now.